if I had a layer for risk, I would say telemarketing activities is kind of the higher echelon of risk because I know that under Section 19 and the telemarketing sales rule that I know with those that you're going to have some risks that are associated with that. So those are some things that I always advise clients like, hey, if you're going to do telemarketing, you better dang well know what the rules are because this is one of the primary ways that they go after companies right
Did anyone else see that bubble and thumbs up that just came up next to your head?
now. I did this and I was trying to do this.
It was like the universe giving a thumbs up to
It
your
was like,
message.
yes, do this. I don't know what
So
happened.
perfect. Literally, he's talking and he's like, if I was to say telesales is the highest risk, a little bubble comes up and a little Facebook like button comes out of it. God has spoken, everybody. Get rid of
Doing it
telesales.
again and it's not doing it. So I don't know.
See, this podcast is divinely blessed. Now we're giving you guidance that's straight from above. Yeah, my father here. Wow, that was, I didn't hear anything you said after that because I was like, why is there a like sign? All right, so Greg, I need life hack here. Anyone who's watching, if you see the bags under my eyes, I have a lot of people at my house. So remember, we're filming this. It's pre-New Year's, post-Christmas. We have 12 people in my house right now. And I'm a person who grew up with wanting personal space. So it's awesome. It's all of my wife's family. It's a ton of fun. But man, Greg, you've got 8 kids. So I mean, mine will leave. My family, they will be out in the next few days. Yours don't leave. What do you do? How do you do it? Life hack. You were just telling me where you're filming right now. Like, how do you survive so many humans around you?
We just slow things down. So like for Christmas, we just had everybody at my house. So I had all my kids in the house. Maybe one of the last years because I have 2 graduating seniors this year, 2 in
Oh,
college, 2 graduating, and then 4 will be left in the house after this year. So we just kept it chill. And then we came up to our cabin up here outside of Yellowstone. So we just hunker down. We just kind of just play games and make it easy. So, but we'll have, I've got 2 families coming up today. That's going to, a family of 8, some friends, and then a family of 4. So we're going to add an additional 12 bodies to, our complex up here in the next 24 hours. So,
you're gonna have like 20 people in the house.
yeah.
Are they staying? Are they staying in the house with you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've got the cabin and I've got a garage with a 2-bedroom apartment on it. So we spread out a little,
Wow.
but yeah.
Life goals, cabin with a place for me to escape. If I had a cabin, I would go myself.
Yeah.
If I had a cabin, I wouldn't tell anyone about it. And it would just be where I go by myself to be by myself. A lot of people are always surprised to hear this, but I am very, 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 very introverted. And people will be like, you're always on camera, you're always on stage. I'm like, super introverted, like to be by myself, alone, left alone, don't want to talk. If you see me at an airport and you're like, are you Anik? Likely to say no and walk away. Not trying to be rude. I just freak out. I scream inside my head. What about you, Greg? You're pretty extroverted, though, I would say.
I'm pretty extroverted. I'll talk to almost anybody.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just how I am.
Yeah. If you've, so the funny joke, guys, is Greg was here. We did a compliance summit event, which, by the way, we have another one coming up soon. We'll talk about that soon. But we did a compliance summit here at the Learn Center. And like he's on stage 2 days, nonstop, straight, just like talking. And then it ends and he's got to rush to the airport. So we're like trying to get him a car. And all of a sudden he's like, oh, I got Uber. I'm leaving. Next thing I know, I'm calling him to ask him something. He's got like 6 of the attendees in the car with him. And the guys, I'm like, are you crazy? I would never want anyone in the car with me. I need to decompress. He's like giving legal advice, like talking to people, or not giving legal advice, but you know what I mean, talking compliance. And I'm like, wow, that is definitely a difference. Because for me, when I go to speak on stage, one of my biggest rules with the event organizer is there has to be a backstage exit, meaning when I'm done talking, I want quiet time. But anyways, we digress. We are back, everybody. So let's start officially the episode I guess this is number 3 officially of the Don't Say That podcast. So 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, everyone. Today we are going to talk about, again, our friends at the FTC and other regulatory bodies. And we're going to talk to you, marketers and advertisers, about the mistakes you're making and the things that you're doing that are wrong. Now, there's been a lot happening. And so I think from the time that we're recording this, Greg, oh, by the way, Greg, of course, our knight in shining armor, the one and only FTC attorney, the best of the best, he is here with us to continue to help us advertisers stay out of the grips, stay out of trouble. Obviously, I got in trouble, so I'm trying to help everybody else stay out of trouble. Um, Greg, it's holiday season, and from the time that this is going to be released on Jan 9th, we are about 10 days. And I gotta say, the FTC has not taken a holiday break. You know, they say the government goes away and doesn't do crap during December. Doesn't seem like that. They just sued the largest Christian university in the country. So we'll talk about that in a minute, guys. And it's a pretty big case. The government's hitting them from all angles because this is the Department of Education already hit them, and now the FTC is coming in. Which I want to talk to you, Greg, about like this multi-agency attack that can happen because it's interesting. But also the biggest thing we're going to talk about today, guys, is if you do telesales, if you are closing sales on the phone, why you are at a increased risk. And why you are of special attention for the regulatory bodies, especially the FTC, and why that was actually where my case got centered around. So it became a big, big focus. And when you hear my story and when you hear the 4 words that were the 4 words that really got me in the biggest trouble, you're going to be surprised, but you're also going to be really well served because you're going to stop saying them. So, Greg, I would have thought they would go on holiday. What's going on over there? So the new suit and new press releases being hit during holidays. Talk to us about this Grand Canyon case.
Yeah, I mean, I sent that over to you earlier this week because you know me, I'm always monitoring it. It doesn't matter when. If there's a new case that comes out, I want to kind of know what's going on. So everybody thinks that, well, it's going to be, and they do, they'll hit small marketers, big marketers. It doesn't matter. And there was a case just a couple of weeks ago we talked about that, you know, it was a smaller case out of Idaho and Florida. But now they bring this one against Grand Canyon University, which is, as you mentioned, pretty decent sized company. They've had other issues with the Department of Education before, but it all comes down to the same thing. I mean, I reiterate this over and over again. I was actually talking to a client this morning before this event and talking to him about an advertisement they were trying to do. And it's all about clear advertising. What would the impression be for the person who's reading it? And obviously the FTC believes that there was some misrepresentation about the results that people were going to have when they joined Grand Canyon or, you know, university, or, you know, they wanted to make sure that that was, you know, clear and conspicuous. And so they filed it. And so that's just true for everybody else. And the irony on this was the abusive telemarketing practices. And we'll talk about, I know you've kind of teed up, we're going to talk about telemarketing practices, but one of the things that's unique in this, you think, oh, this is a university or whatever, but they really utilized aggressive telemarketing practices, and the FTC really focused on that. Was, you know, these aggressive marketing practices that they had engaged in. So they brought this case in the district court in Arizona, and it was just filed this last week. They actually asked for permanent injunction and monetary relief in the case based upon their aggressive advertising practices and you know, relying on the telemarketing sales rule and some of the things that other marketers and other agencies we have to concern ourselves about. So, but you know, there's a lot that's there. I mean, this is going to be a interesting case to follow because you know, they market as a nonprofit and they talk about this, but man, I'm telling you, they hit hard on this telemarketing stuff. So.
Yeah, so definitely telemarketing is picking up more and more heat. I know that Taylor Welch is in the open talking about it, Taylor and Chris. So I don't think they'll mind me sharing, but that was another couple of guys from our space. Then of course my case started, everybody, at a different place. It started with all about like my webinars and my written pages and all. But in part of the investigation, they will find out, right? There's a huge document. 60 pages, you submit answers, they find out that you have a telesales team, and you could just tell at some point that the entire focus became about that operation. And you'll learn why as we talk about this part. So Greg, why is that? What happened? 2021, Well, actually, let me tee it up a little bit better. So, guys, if you're watching this, here's some education. Here's what I learned. Greg, please correct me if I'm out of line on this. I call it the Triad of Compliance. Okay, so it's the compliance triad. You've got what I call web sales, you've got recurring sales, and you've got telesales. Web sales would be anything that you're driving using the internet. So sales pages, video sales letters means a consumer is watching in the masses and they're going and individually putting in their credit card right on the web and buying. Right? So that is webinars, it's VSLs, it's sales pages, it's all of that. It's got its own rules, it's got its own thing. We're going to come and talk about that in a minute. Then you've got ROSCA that commands over recurring sales. So ROSCA is the name of something, don't worry about it, we'll talk about it later. But recurring sales is anything that you have a subscription, right? There's a big thing going on right now, and I'm telling you, you guys are barking up a tree of massive trouble because everyone wants to do trial offers right now. And I'm just going to, you can just look at Greg's face when I say, Greg, how do you feel about trial offers? $1 trial with a $97 a month rebill. It's been spanked already. It's coming back. Marketers are all about it again. Fine. It's not illegal to do, but there's rules and regulations to doing it. So that's a second leg. And the third leg is telesales. With what we're going to talk about today, web sales, there was a case in the Supreme Court that took away some of the FTC's capabilities on going after that, right? So what it's done is it seems to have, and I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, what I'm observing, pivoted some of the prioritization towards telesales. And I saw that in our case. I've seen it in other cases. We're seeing it in this Grand Canyon case. So Greg, 2021, it happens. It involves the Supreme Court. Can you talk us through why it is that they're heavy telesales focus now?
Well, let me take you back and get a little historical context on this. All right. So in 2012, the FTC brings an action against a guy named Scott Tucker. Scott runs kind of a, credit repair type business, debt reduction type business out of Nevada. And so they bring a federal action in Nevada federal courts against him. His company is called AMG Capital Management. Okay. So they bring this action against him and it gets fought and he loses, right? They get a big judgment, but he appeals and goes to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So federal courts are trial courts, and depending on what state you're located in, you're in a different circuit. Circuit is an appellate court, which hears not the facts of the case, but whether the law has been applied appropriately. So the matter goes up to the Ninth Circuit, which tends to be a pretty liberal circuit. I clerked for the Nevada Supreme Court. It's the Ninth Circuit is over Nevada. So this case goes into the Ninth Circuit. They look at it and they say, you know what? The defendant here, Tucker and AMG Capital Management, they're arguing that the FTC has overextended their authority under a section of the Federal Trade Commission Act called 13B. Now, the way you should look at this is 13B is just a kind of an umbrella statute. It's a big statute that says different marketing practices. If you do them wrong, then that allows us to go in and stop you from doing it, take the money you've gained from that activity, and then, give it back to consumers we think have been harmed, consumer redress. Well, Tucker and AMG Capital Management argue that the act actually doesn't say that. The statute 13B doesn't actually give that authority to the FTC. And the Ninth Circuit agrees with that. Now, at the same time, another case in Illinois pops up. FTC sues another guy in Illinois. That guy's name is Brown. And so they go ahead and they sue his company, which is called Credit Bureau Center. Similar type of organization. They're trying to help with credit reports and everything else. And so they go after, Michael Brown and his business, Credit Bureau. And he loses. It's a huge judgment against him. And so he appeals because he finds this AMG Capital Management case in Ninth Circuit. So he goes and he files an appeal to the Seventh Circuit, which is over in Illinois. And the Illinois Circuit Court looks at it and they say, we agree. We think the FTC has overstepped their bounds on this. And we don't think that 13B allows them to get an asset freeze and take all your assets and disgorge profits and give it to consumers under this section of the FTC Act. So what happens is the FTC appeals both of those rulings and it goes to the United States Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court chooses one of the two cases to be kind of the headliner. So they do AMG Capital Management. So that gets put before the US Supreme Court. Oral arguments were heard in February of 2021. And then in April of 2021, a unanimous decision was made by the US Supreme Court agreeing with Tucker and AMG Capital Management and Brown and Credit Bureau and said, yeah, we agree. We don't think that Section 13B of the FTC Act actually allows or grants authority to the FTC to freeze assets and disgorge profits over general marketing practices. And so they come out with this ruling, and it kind of shocked the world. The FTC comes out and they do a press release that obviously that the Supreme Court's wrong, even though it was unanimous, and that they're going to, they can't really appeal it anywhere else because they're the highest court of the land, but they're going to go to Congress and amend the statute. Well, 2.5 years later, they still haven't amended the statute. And so what are they really focused on? Well, they've pivoted. They've moved from going after this overall broad general statute under the FTC Act to one that's very specific and narrow. So now they're using Section 19, which is a specific act that relates generally to telemarketing activities, or they call it the telemarketing sales rule. And so if you look at the cases that the FTC has brought over the last 2 years since AMG Capital Management, they're really focusing on telemarketing activities. I mean, look at this Grand Canyon University case. I mean, there's a reason they're relying on that, because since AMG Capital Management, they've been quite successful in getting asset freezes and disgorging assets based on the TSR, or the Section 19, going away from the general overall to a very specific, activity, telemarketing. So now that's a long historical context, but understand this. If you're engaged in telemarketing activity and you're not abiding by the telemarketing sales rule, or you don't understand the rules, that's one of the number one reasons the FTC can come in and freeze your assets and disgorge your profits and pay back to your consumers. Because if you're violating the act, several courts have already ruled in their favor that they should be able to go out and disgorge based upon those provisions.
All right. So, wow, lots to unpack there. Lots of questions that I've got. So, first question out of curiosity, in my case, had the AMG 2021 case not happened, do you think that when they sent me the notice in May of 2022, do you think it would have just been an asset freeze? Would they have just frozen? Was that the de facto go-to? Or did they kind of make that decision per case basis?
No, I think it's a case by case basis. I mean, I've had investigations and civil investigative demands that occurred while they were using 13B. But you got to understand this. Like, the FTC used Section 13B from the late 70s all the way until 2021. So for almost 40 years, they utilized this. And you know what the federal courts did? FTC attorneys, federal court, they just granted it. It wasn't until it went to the US Supreme Court that anybody does the government even have authority to do this? Which scares you a little bit, right? And I know they've shifted on telemarketing sales rule, and they're getting some judgments at the district court level, and it hasn't really gone to the appellate court level yet. I know there's a pending on even the AMG Capital Management case. They went back and they're trying to do telemarketing activity under that now. So some of that they're going to look at, and there's going to be appeals, and we're going to see what the actual court says they have authority to do, and that's going to get fleshed out, and there'll be more scrutiny on it than there was, but the government was able to do that for 40 years. So to answer your question, did they do CIDs during 13B? Yeah, they absolutely did. So it is a case by case basis, but I think that they would have been more trigger ready when they had 13B to go ahead and go after bigger cases, because they had that in their back pocket, where now they have to be more methodical about it, and they're not going to bring as many cases. When the FTC was arguing in front of the US Supreme Court, I think they had, and I'll have to go back and look at the numbers, but like 90 cases in which they were utilizing Section 13B at the time that was argued in front of the US Supreme Court. I bet there's not.
Oh, wow. At that time, so at that one instance, they had 90 open cases where they were using 13B.
Yeah.
So, okay, I have a lot of questions.
Current or past, but they had at least 90 cases that the Supreme Court was looking at. It's all in the transcripts, and I could go back and look at it.
Got it. So I've always had a lot of questions regarding this. So, why? Okay, so what's the difference between 13B and 19? I mean, wouldn't one argue that they still don't have that level of ability to like freeze funds and do all that under 19? Like, isn't it 13 just covers a different type of sales and 19 covers telesales? No, it's not. It's completely different.
Well, 13 was a broad statute. It was like, hey, we're going to cover all this. And this, what the Supreme Court did is they looked at the specific language of 13B, and there wasn't anything. All 13B said is that they could stop businesses from engaging in that activity, where 19 says they can do more. right? That they can actually go after and get ill-gotten gains, so to speak. So the FTC is relying on the broader language of 19 on telemarketing sales because it's specific to this type of activity to go out and disgorge assets.
So now, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just think 19 is more specific
Okay.
and includes more of the type of language that I think if it was challenged by the U.S. up to the U.S. Supreme Court, I think they could look at it and say, yeah, I think that there's enough authority that Congress has already given under 19 that this is valid.
Okay. So under 13B, because I know I want to play marketer now. I'm gonna like put my marketer hat on, and as opposed to I want to play the guy who's watching or the gal who's listening right now and thinking, aha, I know how to game this. God, we gotta stop doing that, marketers. But so someone's listening. They're like, all right, well, I'll just delete my sales team. That means they can't do anything to me. So under 13B, then what can they do? Is it literally that they cannot recover any funds? They cannot freeze funds? They can what? Stop you? They can just shut you down? So if someone isn't doing telesales and isn't, well, yeah, so let's talk about this. So there's an advertiser who's not doing telesales. Should they feel super safe and comfortable? Like what are their issues? I almost don't even want to bring this up because I feel like I'm incentivizing people to do that, which I'm not, guys. Be compliant, do it right, follow the law. But I know this question is going to come up, so I want to address it.
Well, the FTC is being creative, right? In October of 2021, they sent out 1,000 letters to companies saying that if you violated this order under a provision of the FTC Act, that they could go after $48,000 or $51,000 worth of damages per violation, and then they attach just some of their order that had been entered in against another company, and they're kind of relying on that letter. I don't know how that'll flesh out. I personally am questioning that path. The second way is that they've focused on other laws like the Federal Business Opportunity Disclosure Act. So there's a business opportunity act that the federal government has, and there have been a couple of cases in which they've relied on that to try to get asset freezes as well. But when it comes to 13B, it's still authority. It still allows them to stop businesses. So if you got sued under 13B, they could come in and get an injunction to stop you from continuing to do business. They couldn't just disgorge the assets. So they're pivoting. They're trying to utilize a whole bunch of different things. But I would say, if I had a layer for risk, I would say telemarketing activities is kind of the higher echelon of risk, because I know that under Section 19 and the telemarketing sales rule that I know with those that you're going to have some risks that are associated with that. So those are some things that I always advise clients, like, hey, if you're going to do telemarketing, you better dang well know what the rules are, because this is one of the primary ways that they go after companies right now.
Did anyone else see that bubble and thumbs up that just came up next to your head?
I did this, and I was trying to do this.
It was like the universe giving a thumbs up to your message. It was
like, yes, do this. I don't know what happened.
Perfect. Literally, he's talking, and he's like, if I was to say telesales is the highest risk, a little bubble comes up, and a little Facebook like button comes out of it. God has spoken, everybody. Get rid of
doing
telesales.
It again. It's not doing it, so I don't know.
See, this podcast is divinely blessed. Now we're giving you guidance that's straight from above. Yeah, my Father here. And, wow, that was. I didn't hear anything you said after that, because I was like, why is there a like sign on the video? Okay, I want to break this down a little bit more for people. In like normal marketer talk. So, no, you are not free and clear if you don't do telesales. There are other laws, other rules, other areas they'll come from. That are relevant. You got to follow the law. The law is the law. The rules are the rules. They make them. You got to follow them. Under 13B specifically, they cannot now come and freeze your assets and take everything, but they can stop you from doing business. However, this is it's a note. What do they call it? A notice of default, notice of what? What is that penalty letter called? The warning letter? Do you know? I forgot it.
They call it a notice of order. They're just putting you on notice that there had been a prior case.
I don't like it. I'm not here to talk negatively about any authority, body, or anything. I don't like the letter. So if there can do some advocacy from our industry side, that letter, which I never received, but eventually went back and looked at, clearly says in bold letters on the top of the letter that just because you're receiving this doesn't necessarily mean you're breaking any rules. This is an FYI. And on the letter upon which I think where we were said our company's name was there, and we never physically got the letter in the mail, it went to a different address, and no one ever forwarded it to us. But there were 1,700 companies, I think, if I remember, when I eventually looked at it, listed on that. And that's not how they're doing it now. I do know of some companies that have received an individualized letter that is just for their business, which I think is more the right way to do it. But there were companies on that letter like Uber and I'm forgetting now, but big companies,
I
huge
pulled it up
companies.
right
Amazon.
now. So the
Yeah.
title of it was FTC's Notice of Penalty Offenses Concerning Deceptive or Unfair Conduct Around Endorsements and Testimonials. So that was what was sent out October 21st, 2021. And there's Adobe and there's ADT and there's Amazon and, Amway. I
Yeah,
mean,
and they did another one of these last year, late last year for the pharmaceutical and like the nutraceutical, and there you've got Pfizer and Merck and like, so I guess at some level you look at that. Even when I eventually saw it, I was like, I think this just they picked the top advertisers, the 1,700 top advertisers on Facebook, and just sent a blanket notice because it clearly says like we. So, anyways, but in that it says, hey. So under what authority are they doing that? Are they saying under 13B they have the authority as long as they warn you to come after the damages, the money?
there's a specific clause under the FTC Act under Section 5 that they're relying on.
Okay.
And, if you look at that penalty of notices that was sent out, the actual letter itself, it will go through and it highlights the authority that they rely on. So they're looking under a Section 45M1B that the FTC may notify companies that certain acts or practices have been found in administrative decisions and other consent orders to be deceptive or unfair. So they're saying, hey, look, here's another case. We're giving you notice that we found this activity in this other case was deceptive. So now we're giving notification that if you violate these things, because we're giving you a copy of that order in that other case, that, you should,
Oh.
you should abide by this. And again, this is all under Section 5, which is, deceptive practices.
So that makes sense now because every time I'm talking to Greg, I hear the three numbers I hear the most when it comes to the FTC laws: 5, 13, 19, 5, 13, 19. I can go to bed saying those numbers in my head. So guys, the way it works is now the letter, and this letter was apparently sent as well to Taylor and Chris in their case, and it seems like most of the people on that letter like are one by one getting hit because we were on the first one that ever came out. There, even the lawyers and attorneys didn't really know what it was. No one had an understanding of how it was going to play out. Now it's getting a bit more clear. That letter basically said, look, if you don't, if you make these mistakes, and we're not saying that you are making these mistakes, but if you make these mistakes, you could be penalized upwards of 40, how many thousand? 48,000?
First letter was like 48,000, and the recent letters it's like 51,000.
Oh, cool. All right. So 48,000 per offense. And we got into, during my case, we got into an interesting conversation, which is probably the one part of the whole thing that I got really just upset, which was the potential calculation of, well, this could be, it was like, it was an astronomical number, but I mean, that's the point. So they're going to come after like fines instead of like consumer redress. And so, but just so everyone knows this, like Greg said, this is still like kind of playing out. It's being used, but it hasn't been tested in courts. I do know of a company that had to pay $500,000 as part of their settlement in that Section 5 order. So it's interesting to watch how it goes. But yes, if you're not doing telesales, now if you're doing telesales, let's talk about this. The warning letter is completely irrelevant and unnecessary, correct, Greg? Like if they're not under any obligation to send warnings if you're doing telesales or recurring sales.
No,
Yeah.
telemarketing falls under Section 19 and the telemarketing sales rule, and they have enough authority, at least they believe, to go after that than not. And there's some debates, we know because in your case we had nuances that you can debate even under the telemarketing sales rule, like statute of limitations and things like that. But they're emboldened right now under that, and they're going to keep on going through. I think eventually you'll have a case that's litigated, and then that'll go and through the appellate process. But I mean, it took AMG Capital Management 40 years before it got to the Supreme Court. And
40?
Yeah, I mean, the
Oh, okay, I got it. But
use
how
of
long were
Section
they fighting?
13B.
How they
Well,
were fighting, what, 10
2012
years?
is when they brought the federal action against.
9 years in. Nine
Yeah,
years for them to get the Supreme Court ruling.
it took a long time.
All right. If any of you out there want to be the brave soldier, I'm joking. Don't do it. Just follow the rules. Okay. Let's bring it all back together, guys, because it's taken me months and months to understand this, and I want to make sure everyone does understand it. Under 13B, if you're doing just web sales, you will get a warning. You will understand. Don't break the rules. Know them now. Play by the rules. There are other ways. There are state agencies that can also come after you that aren't privy to all those rules. So you're better off to just follow the rules. But if you're not, you are injecting risk every time you add either recurring revenue, you give an avenue to authorities, or if you add telesales right now, you're really playing. Now, a lot of you listening right now do coaching, consulting, you do a lot of telesales, you got to bring it in. We are going to do a separate episode where we talk about telesales, we talk about the common things we're seeing mistakes. Of course, bam, in our book, don't say that, we get into it. Of course, at the Compliance Summit, which can be bought at compliancesummit.com, we're going to get into the telesales in a big way. And everything that Greg and I are doing, we're going to get into it. I'll just tell you this. In our operation, and mine, I felt so damn good about our telesales calls. I had a full-time paralegal. I was reviewing them. We were good. Refund rates were horribly low. So I was going to say they were like really, really low. Chargebacks were like basically non-existent. Consumers and customers from what we knew were happy. BBB was an A. We were horrible on the phone for the most part, in the sense of our conversions were not that great, and I loved it. And I'm like, keep it clean, keep it super transparent. So I felt, when I found out from Greg, when he was like, your case is going to be mostly about telesales, I was like, yes, ding, 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 I win. I've been prepped for this. I have been doing it right. I've been doing it good. I've had a paralegal full-time working for me, reviewing calls that lead to sales, marking things up. I invented my own scorecard system. I did this, I did that. I'm going to be great. And Greg was sitting there with that exact look on his face. He was just like, all right. And then we got to a point where I was like, I want you, Greg, to audit my calls so that I can send them your review and let them know that our calls are good and we don't agree with their review or their thoughts about our call. And so here's 100 calls, Greg. Go at it, right? I'm going to pay you a big legal fee to do this. Greg does 4 calls, calls me back. I think you were at your cabin. It was like, again, you called me like Friday night from his cabin. He's like, we need to talk. I was like, uh-oh. By the way, you never want your attorney to tell you we need to talk. So I get on. He's like, I don't think you should have me review these calls anymore. He's like, I kind of know what the issue is. And I got to tell you guys, I honestly, generally, to my core, till this day, I hold to the fact that I don't agree with this. I do not believe this is a violation, in my opinion. All right? But it's fine. I want to follow the rules. Now that I understand the rules, we'll follow them. It came down to 4 words that we said on the call that my sales agents would say. And the 4 words were, what is your goal? I don't know how to talk to someone unless I understand what their goals and aspirations and things are. That is just the industry from which we come. That is the wake of life I come from. I thought it was okay to be like, hey, what do you want from life? The problem, and I understand it now that Greg and I have talked more about it and have heard the perspective of the commission. I don't sit here to disrespect them. I've heard their perspective, and I'm like, all right, I don't agree, but I hear you. And that is that it's an implied earnings claim. So if I'm on with Greg and Greg's like, well, Anik, what's your goal? And I'm like, I want to make $10,000 a month, or I want to lose 32 pounds by tomorrow. And Greg's like, oh, hell yeah, that's a great goal. We can help you do that. Let's get on with it. It's an implied earnings claim. It's giving me confidence that what I said is absolutely attainable. And unless Greg or I can substantiate that before saying it, it's now a claim that's not substantiated. I go back to, I recently saw advice being given on Facebook where someone in an authoritative place said, claims don't matter. Greg, you remember this? I sent you that screenshot. Don't worry about claims. They only care about refunds and stuff. And I'm like, the hell? Man, it's like all they care about is claims. It's like
These self-acclaimed like legal experts
attorneys.
never talked to an attorney. They've never looked at a case. And it was a marketer. It wasn't even an attorney that was posting it. And they were like,
Yeah.
hey, it's only the big guys. It doesn't matter what the claims you make. It depends if you give refunds. You're stupid if you don't give refunds, because there are companies that give refunds all the time. But the way the
Yeah.
FTC looks at that is it's like the iceberg. It's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a
100%.
slew of
100%.
other, anyway,
Guys,
stupid.
take it from the horse's mouth. I am that person. I gave refunds. We have no problems. We had an A rating on the PPP going into this. People were happy. People like us. I'm still here. We did not have a problem. I did not mistreat my customers. I did not smack them around. I did not con them and scam them. I have a $4 million facility I'm sitting in every day. Did it help? I'm sure it did. All right. I'm sure it did. Our case took a long time. In the end, we settled, and I'm still alive, and I'm still in the industry, and I didn't get barred. And so, yes, I think all of that did help. But was it enough to say, guys, come on, I'm the good guy. What are you doing? Leave me alone. No, it wasn't. The rules are the rules that were broken. So, telesales definitely dug heels in if you're doing it. If you can avoid it, the advice I've received from Greg, which I'll share with you here, is he said, look, if you can build a business without telesales, you'll sleep better at night. Everyone will be better for it, and the commission will be happier for it because they are bothered by the things that are said by salespeople on the phone. Plus, now you've got a sales team of 10, 12 people out there saying stuff that you can't really monitor and closely it's putting risk on you, the business owner. Now, of course, Complyly, our software, which is coming out, is going to help you manage and monitor all of that. That means every sales call, every agent will be able to be monitored. So if we can help you with that. Now, am I saying I'm never going to do telesales? No. I might do it. I just know the rules now. We're going to tightly monitor it. We're going to monitor using our software and just make sure we're good. All right, so that's how things have fallen now. If you were doing web sales only, you're still, of course, the rules apply. There are risk factors, but this is why in 2021 things pivoted and have now become more focused on telesales. Greg, if you were to have a magic ball or just a prediction, do you have any predictions? Where do you see this is going? Do you think there will be congressional change? Do you think they'll continue to just focus heavily on 19? Do you think they're going to lean heavier on the warning letters and get kind of aggressive there? Like, what do you see?
I think they've been successful in 2023 with the TSR. I think that Section 19, they're going to continue to do telemarketing activities. They've been really successful with it. I think they've been successful with the Business Opportunity Act, and that has its own problems. I think it's vague, and I think there's some language that could be challenged under it, but they've been successful. I think they'll continue to do the warning letters. I think they'll select a case that they'll actually take to trial so that they can prove out that method. The problem they have with the warning letters is it's really based upon administrative actions that happened in the 70s. That's the last time they really utilized that provision of the code. So I think they'll try to do that and see where it's going. I think they'll continue to try to do amendments, constitutional, application and maybe an amendment to the FTC Act. But I think that's going to be difficult. If it was easy, they would have already done it. I think they'll continue to lobby for that, but I don't know if they'll get because there's a lot of, as much as it affects not just this industry, but every industry. And so I know there are a lot of big players that are out there that have had regulatory issues like Amazon and Google that are going to try to object to that as well. So it's not just coaching and mentoring or training or make money online or performance claims type cases. This is going to be like the big boys are going to come in and play in this pool. So going forward, they're going to focus on what's working, and then they'll try to expand their authority through these other letters and other things and see how it goes. But I would say if I were going to protect 2024, I would make sure you button down your telemarketing activities as best you can. That doesn't mean you go rogue, with your online activities, because I still think you could shut down under 13B. They could come in and sue you. They can still stop your business. And still expensive. Doesn't, if you go through a lawsuit, super expensive with the federal government, doesn't cut down your fees. So there are things that you can avoid. Good, clean marketing practices is what I always advise. It's your best defense. It does convert. It does work. You have to be committed to it.
So on that point, guys, we are, here are some of the things I hear a lot, Greg. I hear people say, I'm too small to get sued. We're going to address that coming up soon. They say, I'll just worry about it when it happens because right now I'm making great money. We're going to address that when that comes. The other thing I hear a lot, and I used to say a lot, so I'm a part of the problem on that side, was compliant marketing doesn't work. I might as well just shut down my business if I'm going to be fully compliant. I can say that there must have been a period of my life a few years ago that I would have believed that. I now can tell you without a resounding doubt in my mind that is false. It does work. I'm making it work. And it's kind of become my mission now. It's kind of become my message to the industry. So I'm out there doing it and I'm trying to figure out how to teach you how to do it. It's different. It is different. All right. Your smash and grab is going to stop, and for good reason. So we're going to talk about all that, but compliant marketing does work. Everybody, thank you for being with us today. Greg, thanks as always for taking time away from your family during your family vacation and being here. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to get the heck away from my crazy-ass family as they're having their field day at home right now. Everyone, some promo messages for you. Don'tSayThat.com. We are launching this book on Feb 13th. A lot of blood, sweat, and equity has gone into it. It's a superb book. If you sell or even open your mouth online to sell anything or offline or whatever, just read the book, man. It's got all the rules and regulations. Then we're also doing a live in-person event here in DC. We've already done this before. It was a rock star success. We're going to go for about 100, 125 people. If it gets more, we'll see. But it's in DC here. Go to compliancesummit.com. Compliancesummit.com. You can get yourself and your staff a seat. And we have, of course, an academy coming out and a certification program coming out and a software coming. We have a lot of stuff going on. We want to help you get compliant and teach you how to do it. So this is all with good stuff in mind. Next episode, we're going to talk about, actually, I don't remember what we're going to talk about, but it's going to be fun. It's coming out. Make sure you share, get this message out to other people. Don'tSayThat.com. Greg, thanks again. And everybody, as I always say, when life pushes you, stand straight, smile, and push it the heck back. Talk to you guys later. Bye.